Let me put it this way. If Egypt joined the war, Israel would be sunk. They're overcommitted in Gaza. They're overcommitted. There's not a sufficient reserve to draw upon. And, if Egypt put 2 armored divisions on the border and drove towards Dimona, there's nothing that could stop them from taking Israel's nuclear weapons production facility. That's just a statement of fact. There's nothing Israel could do to stop that. And you combine that with, if that happened at the same time, Jordan decided to come in and take Jerusalem and occupy the West Bank, there's nothing Israel could do to stop that right now, because the moment they have to divert, they have to empty Gaza, then Hamas reemerges and Hamas will pursue. Or they'll withdraw from the north and Hezbollah will fill that gap and pursue. Israel's overstretched. They don't have enough troops. But I don't think Egypt wants to get involved in that. Egypt is sort of happy with the status quo that existed on October 6th, and they'd like to get back to that. They're not looking for a fight with Israel. But if push comes to shove, Egypt would be more than capable of taking care of the majority of the Israeli defense that could be put up.
All right. What do you got for us, Yelena? These are questions coming in live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Oh yeah, I found one question. To be honest, I'm interested in it too. A guy named Malachi asks, do you think Azerbaijan will attack Armenia or Iran? Or is for this war expands? I'm Armenian.
Do I think Azerbaijan will attack Armenia or Iran? Well, no, if this war expands, no. I mean, Azerbaijan, right now there's some talk about there's a corridor that people want to create that connects Nakhchivan, which is an Azerbaijani enclave, with Azerbaijan total that would cut across southern Armenia. The Zanguzar corridor, I think, is what they would call it. And Azerbaijan has talked about making this happen. Iran has said if they do that Iran will probably get involved militarily to prevent that from happening. I think things have calmed down on that front. All parties seem to be promoting what they call the 3+3 negotiations. That's the regional negotiations that include Russia, Turkey, Iran, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, to talk about how to resolve regional issues. That seems to be a track that is achieving some results. There are people who are encouraging Armenia to make moves towards NATO membership, to break ranks with Russia, to drop out of the CSTO, the Commonwealth State Treaty Organization, of something of that nature. But I don't see either Azerbaijan or Iran making a precipitous move at this time. There's just there ain't enough juice in the lemon to squeeze it that hard. So.
All right, a good visual. Got anything else for us, Yelena, or should I move on to a voicemail message?
Oh, maybe there was one guy, he was very eager to ask a question and he typed it several times.
Well, why don't you just insert it? Just insert it.
Yeah. What do you think of Kurds in Iraq? This was the one.
What do I think of the Kurds in Iraq? What do I think of the Kurds in Iran? What do I think of the Kurds in Turkey? What do I think of the Kurds in Syria? What I think is that it's very difficult to speak of a viable, independent Kurdish nation that encompasses the totality of all the Kurds in the region. The Kurds they are condemned by their geography and their history. The Kurds in Iraq have achieved a certain amount of autonomy, but they overplayed their hand, and the Iraqi government made a move and took control of the oil industry in Kurdistan, which had given the Kurds a certain amount of freedom. Also, the Kurds in Iraq are, they have problems themselves. They have I believe the PUK, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, and the KDP, the Kurdish Democratic Party. And they've been fighting each other tooth and nail. They don't get along. Talabani is PUK, Barzani is KDP. They've had a civil war. They fought during the time of Saddam. They have fought since then. They're at odds together now. The KDP is more Western oriented. The PUK is more Iranian oriented. So I think the Kurds in Iraq have a lot of domestic political problems that they have to resolve before they can start thinking about becoming the kernel around which a broader Kurdish republic could be built.
Hi, Scott. I've got a question for you. I come from a city in Syria called Tartus, and there's a legend, a fairy tale, I don't know what you want to call it, that about the first Gulf War. There was a Syrian general, Deep Dahir his name was, and he was the head of the Syrian special forces that were stationed in Kuwait. And one day, apparently, there was an altercation between him and Norman Schwarzkopf, where Norman Schwarzkopf had ordered the Allied forces and the Syrian special forces in particular to attack into Iraq. And he said, I only take my orders from Damascus. My orders are to hold a defensive position in Kuwait. And the altercation went from verbal into fistfights, and apparently Norman Schwarzkopf ended up with a black eye. It sounds like a fairy tale, sounds like a legend. But it is a very well-known story, and there's apparently a lot of corroborators for it in that part of the world, in the city where I come from originally. So yeah, can you please confirm or deny? Just would like to hear it from the other side. Of course, if that happened, you would have heard of it. Being in the first Gulf War and something like that, a black eye for Schwarzkopf would not have gone unnoticed. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, you worked for Storm and Norman for a time, right?
I mean, I was on his staff for the entire war. He arrested me once, and he fired me twice. So yeah, Norman and I got along great. Then he gave me a medal. So go figure. What we do know is this, that the Syrians and the Egyptians had contributed a good size force, about a division each, to the effort. And while they were committed to the liberation of Kuwait, they would not enter into Iraq proper. So during the advance, as the 7th Corps is peeling out, because you basically got this map here at the Gulf. Which hand is which? Bottom line is, there was the west, the attack out west, the Hail Mary. And as the 7th Corps is making its attack, the Egyptians and the Syrians did not keep pace, because to do so would have required them to go into Iraq. And so they only proceeded up the Wadi al-Batin in Kuwait, creating a gap between the 7th Corps and them that could have been exploited by the Iraqis. And so General Schwarzkopf confronted them and said, execute the plan. And they said that they won't execute a plan. That caused a delay in the attack, as Tommy Franks had to get his troops to come in and align it. But it didn't matter, because at that point in time, the Marine Corps, Schwarzkopf had said that it'd take the Marines would never reach Kuwait, and we reached Kuwait in less than 3 days. We captured Kuwait. That was the end of the war. The Marines won the war. That's what I'm trying to say. But the point is, I'll tell you this. Schwarzkopf had a 4-person personal protection detail, Delta Force. Had the Syrian general raised his hand, he would have received about 5 bullets center mass. His own personal bodyguards would have been dispatched that quick, and we would have had an international incident. I also know that, having seen Norman Schwarzkopf at the end of the war, he didn't have a black eye. So I will tell you right now that it's 100% crap that a Syrian general punched him, no matter how much that story you want it to be true. I do believe there was a confrontation. I do believe that General Schwarzkopf raised his voice, and I do believe that the Syrian let it be known that he won't take orders from Schwarzkopf. I also believe that General Khalid, the Saudi commander of the coalition forces, advised Schwarzkopf to back down because we didn't want the Arab component of the coalition to disengage totally. That would have screwed up the whole plan. And that the Saudi general was able to meet with the Syrian and Egyptian generals and get them to move forward in a way that kept pace with the advance of the 7th Corps. But there was no fist fight. Had there been a fist fight, that Syrian general would be dead, 100% guaranteed. Delta doesn't screw around.
Fake news, as we say. The next question comes from Uncle Sweet Potato in Hong Kong. Should a Palestinian state be established? How would you see her borders? Gaza only, or Gaza plus West Bank, or Gaza, West Bank and a channel to West Bank, or Gaza plus West Bank and some Israel settlements, or occupied territories? By the way, what did the UN resolution in 1947 say about the borders of Palestine and Israel?
There's a lot there. Should a Palestinian state be established? The answer is yes. I don't know if that's called a question. That was to say, should it be established? How would you see your borders to be? I will go with, we'll start not using 47 or 48, so it doesn't matter what the beginning resolution say. I would go with 67. The 67 appears to be the formula that was accepted to the Alger and it seems to be the foundation with most discussions of the two-state solution in the so 67 borders. One of the things that has to be resolved is how you connect Gaza with the West Bank. Some of the thinking is that there will be a dedicated highway built between the two that will be controlled by Palestinian police and maybe some Israeli police monitoring to make sure that nothing exits the highway that should exit the highway. But that's the least of it. But I think that's what we're looking at there. The 1967 borders with a line of communication, land line of communication highway that connects Gaza with the West Bank that is controlled by Palestine.
All right, here's another voicemail message from Wallace in London. Wallace.
Hi Jeff, hi Scott. The Ukrainians have crossed the river Ritter into the sun. Is this a threat to the Russians or a trap for Ukraine?
Call it a trap means that the Russians have been encouraged to do this and want to do this, and I believe that's the case. What I believe is that that area is a difficult place for the Ukrainians to stand here. You have to keep in mind that the right bank is controlled by Ukraine has a height elevation advantage. And so the Ukrainian artillery is up there looking down on the battlefield. So the Russians, what they've done is they've tried to pull their forces back beyond effective artillery, which has created a gray zone. And what the Ukraine has done is brought troops into that gray zone to create a bridge. These troops, as they arrive, they take 30 to 60% casualties. So for every 10 guys you bring across, 3 to 6 are killed or wounded right off the bat. The ones that land, there's no highway, they have to be resupplied. You can't get sufficient heavy equipment across either. And as they push out, the Russians have created a mobile defense that is destroying them. They engage, they destroy, then they bring in their own artillery, their own air, and there's only a point. There's a point where the Ukrainians outstrip their ability to support by fire, and then they fall under the superior fire of the Russians, and they get killed. So we're in a situation where the Ukrainians are literally throwing away thousands of their, well-trained Marine forces into this effort to, the goal of the Ukrainians here, I believe, is to break what they call it's Highway 14. I could be wrong on that number, but they want to go across and split that highway, thereby disrupting the parallel line of communication along the battlefield that might put Ukrainian forces that are on the left side, on the west side, in harm's way by denying them logistical sustainability. But there's no way, I believe, that the Ukrainians will be able to do that because they're just getting slaughtered. The Russians have built up sufficient defenses and they have sufficient firepower in place, and the Ukrainians are just putting guys on that bank and then they're getting killed. They tried to do it for propaganda reasons. The fact that you asked the question, I'm not accusing you of being a propagandist. I'm saying that you asked the question, that means that you're aware of the story because people are trying to promote that thematic. But the reality is it's a non-starter. You can't sustain it. Even if they cross the highway, they have to reinforce that success. Where are the reinforcements coming from? They ain't getting across the river without getting slaughtered. Then as they move up, they're going to get slaughtered. So even if they break it, the Russians will be able to counterattack, push them back, and that's the end of that.
All right. We have a question from Saluki in Florida. Do you expect any country to go up against the Zionists in the U.S., or will the West have their way? And if they know the Zionist regime will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if they are losing the war, what about the other nations that have the same capabilities in the area? Are they afraid?
I mean, you'd have to ask those nations. I think Israel understands that if they were ever to use a nuclear weapon, that's the end of Israel. Pakistan has basically made it clear that if Israel were to use a nuclear weapon against Iran, that Pakistan would use a nuclear weapon against Israel, and that would be the end of Israel. Israel is such a small place, 2 or 3 nuclear weapons, and you've basically terminated Israel as a nation state. And the United States isn't going to sit back and just let Israel use a nuclear weapon. That just isn't going to happen. So the best thing to do is for Israel to get rid of this nuclear capability so that we don't have to deal with oddball speculation like this. And I'm not accusing the people asking the question of oddball speculation. I'm just saying, no, they're not going to use it. Look, everybody's standing up. The Houthi in Yemen are standing up against them. Hamas is standing up against them. Hezbollah is standing up against them. Iran is saying that they will back Hezbollah. This axis of resistance is unbeatable from their perspective. Israel can't beat them. So I think this is the predicament that we're in, that Israel has pushed this too far. They've turned the world against them. Global public opinion is arrayed against Israel. They've even turned the United States against them. The United States is putting pressure. Keep in mind that Israel said they would never accept a ceasefire under any circumstances. Looks like they're getting ready to accept a ceasefire. Why would they do that? It means the circumstances aren't going well for them. I think they're being placed on a lot of pressure. And I think their military is more in need of a pause than Hamas is, because they're taking quite a few vehicular losses and they haven't figured out what to do on the ground.